Thank you everyone for attending this presentation. I'd like to introduce Ms. Rima Al-Bilahi. She is from King Saud Ibn Abdulaziz University for Health Sciences. She will be giving us a short talk on a cross-linguistic study on politeness in Arabic, Russian, and English. If you have any questions, please post any questions that you have in the Q&A box, and we can go through them at the end of her speech. Thank you very much. Welcome, Ms. Rima. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for clicking the link to my presentation on cross-linguistic study on politeness in Arabic, Russian, and English, in which I will be looking at how praise and criticism is realized in 3 different languages through the prism of the politeness theory. Yep, can we move to the next slide? Thank you. So, politeness theory, where is it located? It is located under the field of pragmatics. Robin Lakoff is regarded as the mother of pragmatic politeness theory, who offered the rules of pragmatic competence, which she summarized as either be clear or be polite, and which was the first suggestion that there is a link between indirectness and being polite. What Brown and Levinson did is that they further developed Lakoff's idea by drawing on concepts of social theory, mainly Goffman's theory of face, and they combined it with existing pragmatic frameworks, namely the speech act theory and Grice's conversational implicatures. So let's move to the next slide. Yes. Their theory is based on the notion that a rational person has a public image or self-esteem that he or she would want to maintain in any given conversation, which they call face. Further, they divide face into positive face and negative face. By positive face, they mean the need to be liked and approved by everyone. And by negative face is meant the desire to act freely and to have your actions not being impeded by others. So some acts that can damage positive face include criticisms, disagreements, complaints, insults, and other acts can damage negative face, which includes orders, requests, commands, and offers. So can we move to the next slide? Yes. And politeness theory presupposes that certain strategies or linguistic devices are thought to contain pre-assigned polite or impolite values. And some of these strategies tap into the negative aspect of face, while others tap into the positive aspect of face. And here we see just a random list of strategies that speakers use to soften any face-threatening act that, I'm sorry. Yes, which includes indirectness, hedging, and personalizing, such as passives, showing pessimism, claiming in group membership solidarity, joking, giving reasons for the face threat or performing a face-threatening act, and seeking agreement before disagreeing, for example, with the speaker, the other speaker. Yep, thank you. So politeness as a theory traditionally has been used to analyze spoken interactive discourse. However, due to the social turn in composition studies, today writing is seen as a socially situated activity. And of course, this includes scholarly research writing or written discourse. And it is no longer viewed as a static activity of reporting knowledge. And therefore, it lends itself very well to such analytical frameworks. So here, I just want to show you how politeness was studied or applied to in published discourse, and mainly reviewing or scholarly book reviewing to mitigate any face threat especially in evaluation and especially in criticism. So for example, reviewers, they would hedge negative comments, as in the first example. Discussion of specific trade agreements and export flows may be dated. Personalizing, by which the author or the reviewer claims that this opinion is just mine and you don't have to agree with it. Solidarity markers, as in the third example. I'm sure F would agree that we need more data before we have a truly comprehensive theory of blah, blah, blah. Delegating responsibility, so putting the responsibility of a negative comment on somebody else, on a third party. Praise and criticism pair, it is to include a positive comment or to express something very positive before delving into negative evaluation. Thank you. Okay, and given that, so we can move, thank you. So given that in this study, I have compared how praise and criticism are expressed and redressed in 3 different languages, it is safe to assume that this research falls under the category of cross-cultural politeness, which is based on 2 assumptions. That in different cultures, people interact differently, and that these differences can reflect specific cultural values, ideas, perspectives that people of a given culture have internalized throughout their upbringing and linguistic socialization. Thank you. So let me explain how this notion is reflected in Japanese culture and how it is translated into their scholarly discourse. So Japanese culture is actually regarded as a negative politeness culture that values modesty and respects distant social relations between people. Therefore, praise and compliments, ironically, are perceived as highly face-threatening acts that might be interpreted as attempt to shorten the social distance between the speakers. And therefore, authors, they hedge their praise. Another interesting observation is that in negative politeness cultures, apologies are very important, and they perform various pragmatic functions. And therefore, they're actually encountered a lot in, for example, in the genre of book reviewing, in which reviewers apologize for their negative opinions. A third interesting observation that I found is expression of denigration. So to redress face threat of a negative evaluation, sometimes reviewers minimize their own significance of their own ideas and their own intellectual capacities. Yes, we can move to the next slide. Thank you. But what do we know about Russian and or politeness in Russian and Arabic cultures? So both cultures can be regarded as positive politeness cultures, in which social distance between the participants is rather small or short, and members of these cultures view positive politeness strategies as being central to being polite. And it is mainly used to establish or maintain solidarity between the participants within an interaction. Thank you. Can we move to the... So I'll talk a little bit about Arabic and Russian. I'll try to be very quick. So the notion of face in Arabic, the notion of face is central to understanding the phenomenon of politeness in Arabic. Scholars looking at Arabic politeness notice that protecting and giving face is central to the construction of communication as a whole. So for example, I'll just go over some of the examples here. We have Nelson and et al. Studies in which they reported that respondents found it difficult to express refusals from people or persons of higher status. So if a boss is inviting you for dinner, so it was very difficult for them to, they would rather not refuse. This also pertains to examples such as like a friend who was like asking for your notes because he missed a class. So people would share their notes, like they would rather not refuse. Another aspect is compliments in Arabic and praise, which scholars have noticed they could lack sincerity. They can be very long, repetitive, and they contain a lot of similes and metaphors. Recommendations and advice are always highly hedged and indirect. With regard to Russian politeness, however, Russians are often described as discourteous and domineering. They use a lot of FTAs or face-threatening acts, such as requests and directives in unhedged manners. They tend to provide unsolicited advice and evaluation. Also, indirectness or being indirect is frowned upon and can be perceived as a waste of hearers' time and oftentimes causes confusion. Yep, we can move to the next one. So all this takes us to the research questions, or my research questions. Do politeness strategies used to mitigate any face threats inherent in an evaluation, because evaluation is face threatening, vary across three cultures? And do any of these differences reflect any culture-specific considerations? So what I did is, as I said, I looked at book reviews, scholarly book reviews, published in prestigious academic journals in 3 different languages, Arabic, Russian, and English. So I have 38 book reviews in Arabic, 40 in Russian, and 38 in English. All of them written by native speakers of each language. The column on the left shows the word count of each corpus. Yeah, we can move to the next slide. The analytical framework was inspired by the Speech Act theory. So the texts were manually analyzed for instances of praise and criticism, which was inspired by the Speech Act theory. And after locating each instance of negative and positive evaluative act, I searched for specific strategies that reviewers employed to soften face threat, which was inspired by the politeness theory. Yes, we can. Yeah. So this table here shows the absolute and the relative frequencies of praise and criticism across 3 corpora. So in Russian and Arabic, positive comments are significantly outweigh the number of negative evaluative comments, whereas in English corpus, evaluation is almost equally divided between positive and negative, so 342 compliments and 351 critical comments. So we can move to the next one. Almost more than 3/3, I would say, of all negative acts across 3 corpora are mitigated. So, which suggests that reviewers are pretty much aware of the face threat inherent in negative comments, which leads them to use various modifications, of course. However, I'd like to note that in Arabic, mitigated evaluative acts are much more frequent, or proportionally are much more frequent than they are in English and Russian. So they are less direct. So we can move to the next one. Yes, so this table here shows the numbers and the distribution of mitigating strategies that were used throughout the three languages, or the 3 corpora. Among these, hedges are the most frequent ones. In English and Russian, they comprise almost 40% of overall mitigating strategies and only 23% in Arabic, which is not surprising. And this is in tune with all the studies or all the reports that have been done on criticism, especially in scholarly discourse. However, I won't have the time to go over all these categories. I would like to only focus on the most interesting observations. So we can move to the next slide. So the first thing that I noticed is that not only criticism is hedged, but also praise is hedged, which is similar to what we noticed in the Japanese, oh, no, can we go back to, the Japanese book reviews. So if we look at this is an example taken from Russian corpus. If we look at the bottom of the slide, this is the translated example. So perhaps Yuskova's main gift as a researcher is her ability to subject an area of language that has been thoroughly researched before to a meticulous analysis, and to dig out not only the unacknowledged new facts, but also to reveal the inadequacy of existing descriptions. Okay, I see, yes. Yeah, and the second example here, this is taken from the Arabic corpus. And I believe that Salwa Hamada's achievements, in addition to her work, can or may inform a fertile base that will help raising Arabic language in the light of knowledge and academia. So these two examples are very personal, and they're directed at the reviewee personally. And this is why I believe the reviewers, they decided to hedge. But what I like to notice is that praise is much more often hedged in English than it is in Russian and Arabic. So Russian and Arab scholars prefer to express praise directly, even if it's lavish and even if it's personal. So can we move to the next slide, please? The second most frequently used mitigation strategy is praise criticism pair, by which the author first expresses a positive comment and then moves to the negative comment. Let's look at the Arabic. It's at the bottom of the slide. So here, the author says, and the author continues debunking illusions that surround the language, teaching acquisition, blah, blah, blah. So the negative comment is underlined, and you see it at the bottom of the page, and we wish that the author had probed deeper into. So here, and also, can we move to the next page? Here we see some, no, before that. The previous, yeah. This is something very similar I noticed with Arabic examples as well. So the negative comment is underlined at the bottom of the page. And again, before that, the author engages in a very long, flattering, nice, beautifully articulated comment before expressing that some points have to be corrected. Yeah, this is something that is not seen in English or Russian data. Can we move to the next slide? Okay, something that is specific to English corpus that I thought was interesting is the use of a personalizing strategy, by which the author or the reviewer takes the responsibility for his own opinion and implies that it is only my opinion and nobody has to agree with it. And this is a very actually negative politeness strategy, or a purely negative politeness strategy. And yes, it was mostly used in English and very, very little in Russian and Arabic. And in English, it was used with highly critical comment as like the second example. DP is a disappointment. I doubt there is anything new in it for her peers, and I would hesitate to recommend it to students. So, other attribution is a strategy that was very common in Arabic corpus. So here, the reviewer, he would attribute the criticism to another party, as we can see, the reader or the learner, and thus avoid confrontation. Yes. This strategy was specific to Russian corpus, using emotional language. By which reviewers expressed it's a pity, unfortunately, sadly, and combined it with criticism. And the way these work is that the reviewer shows solidarity with the reviewee. So in this example, the reviewer explains that in the field of communication studies, the author's approach will eventually be replaced by something new. So it's a waste of time. And can we move to the next page? Yeah. And here, the reviewer is concerned that the author might be misunderstood. Yeah, so to recap, the main tendencies that I found with regards to politeness theory is that in Russian, there is a gravitation towards expressions of solidarity and cooperation. In Arabic, it was mostly towards conflict avoidance and excessive praise. English, on the other hand, gravitated towards expressing evaluation with strategic use of autonomy and distance. And while one might be tempted to interpret these tendencies in the light of models of cross-cultural theory, it must be noted that Russian and Arabic linguistic academic communities are rather compact in size, and they're much smaller than the English one. And as a result, the communication will always be oriented towards maintaining social committee and group harmony, because scholars most likely know each other, and most likely they're just friends who are asking each other to review their own monographs, for example. And I would like to conclude just with this quote from Moranin. There are good grounds for both regarding the scientific genres as essentially uniform, that is culturally independent, but also as culturally variable. So if we cannot show that only one of these claims is true, then they may both be true at the same time. And I guess that's, yep, that should be it. And yeah, thank you very much. Did I fit into my 20 minutes?
You did. Thank you very much, Rima. That was a very informative talk on cross-linguistic study and politeness. Very interesting topic. Thank you very much. I learned a lot. I'm sure everyone else can agree. We have, if anyone has any questions, please post it in the Q&A box. Ms. Rima, we have Mr. Andrew Childers asking if you would like to, may we please have access to your slides?
Yep, sure. I will, would he like me to send them, or is there a place where we share our slides? I'm not sure.
If you can just post your email and he can send you an email. Thank you very much.
Okay, yep, sure, we'll do that.
Thank you. Any other questions?
This is my email.
Great, thank you, Rima. I'd like to ask a question, Rima. What made you decide to study this topic, this study in politeness with these three specific languages, Arabic, Russian, and English? Why this combination?
Well, because I speak the three languages, and I always found it like, it was like, even as growing up, it was very confusing for me to move from norms from, for example, Russian, where I had to be very direct, and then to talk to my Arab friends and, you know, notice that they would be upset if I would say something about their watch or their shoes, that it didn't match their clothes. So it was something that, you know, was very personal to me. And I guess it just, I grew up with it, and I've always wanted to see why and how Russians think. But what actually my data shows is that, at least in my data, is that Russians are not as direct and as rude as they are pictured, even in literature on Russian language. Actually, a lot of it is more, can be more interpreted as acts of extending solidarity, being friendly, showing that I'm on your side and therefore I'm trying to help you. I'm not trying to criticize you. So yeah, this was one of the main findings.
Oh, that's great. I guess you have like an inside access, so you see a different point of view. And once you did
but also my PhD supervisor, she was Polish and her research was on Russian, so she provided me with a lot of literature on Russian politeness, and that did help to, you know, answer a lot of questions, yeah, with regards to Russian politeness.
That's really great. Thank you very much. It was very informative, and I learned a lot. Another question that just came up. Are you working on any other research in speech acts or politeness theory?
Actually, not at the moment, but I really hope that I start going back to working on politeness, because this is my interest, especially cross-cultural politeness. I mean, this is what I'm mostly interested in. But at the moment, no, it's what I'm working on something very. Oh, Iman, you're here. Okay. So this is my colleague. Thank you so much for fascinating. Okay, thank you, Iman. Wow.
Yes, agreed. Any other questions? We just have a few minutes left.
Oh. I really don't know how to answer that. I just grew up with this accent.
Okay. That's an interesting question. Well, thank you very much, Rima. Any other questions?
So this is the Q&A box, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. At the bottom, yeah. Well, if there aren't any other questions, Ms. Rima, would you like to add anything to your talk? Final thoughts, or?
I would actually add a lot, because this is just a very narrow subset of what I did in my dissertation, and there's so many beautiful examples, but unfortunately, I just couldn't share them in 20 minutes. But if anyone is interested, or interested in collaboration, especially with regards to politeness, I would be more than happy to join.
Oh, that's very kind of you. Thank you very much. And you've posted your email in the chat box, correct?
Yes, it is there, yes.
Well, thank you very much. It was lovely having you here. Really appreciate it, and look forward to hearing more about politeness theory.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure presenting here.
Thank you, dear Rima. I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
I'm glad you did. Thank you. Thank you for having, and thank you for helping me with my, my slides.
Well, that's why we're here. We all support each other.
Thank you so much. That was that was a very shocking mishap, but yeah, thank you. You made it flow very smooth.
Thank you very much once again.